I will tell you what he is, a Nepo baby.
Of course.
Even though ESPN is trying to, well, he's not some Nepo baby. He's a draftable
Ramona
NBA
Shelburne is saying
prospect.
this.
Ramona Shelburne wants to continue getting text messages responded to by LeBron James.
But
that is why she is arguing this point.
But
and
she's
it's
there
sad
for the
and shameless.
She reports the detail, right? Like she's on for the NBA Finals, NBA playoffs. She'll be there reporting on big events. She's their NBA insider on location. Stephen A. Smith will go to Ramona Shelburne for info.
I mean,
what are we doing, man?
This Mark Spears evaluation from the anonymous NBA scout. Guys, if we can, I want to play this one more time, and I want everyone to watch this and view it through the lens of almost a comedy where someone like does a movie or a play and asks their manager to read back the review of the movie they just did, thinking they're going to be told how great it was and how everyone loved it, only to be hit over the face with a 2x4 with a negative review of said movie. I listened to this and was giggling because I'm envisioning a comedy where that happens to the main character and the star of the movie. Here is Mark Spears delivering the anonymous talent scout evaluation of Bronny James.
Oh, Bronny.
Well, they wanted to reserve judgment until they saw him. They did see he was listed as 6'1", and they did see he had a 40.5 vert. But I was like, what would you do right now before he goes and plays? What would you do? And they said, we wouldn't draft him. Both of them said they would not draft him. I said, okay, let me give him a couple days. Let's see what happens after they watch him play. Now, this is their take after watching him play. Scout 1. I still don't think he's ready, but he did some good things. He's on the smaller side, so he's going to have to be elite on defense. You can see he has good vision, makes right passes, takes good shots. He's probably going to need more time. If the Lakers don't draft him, I don't see anyone drafting him. Teams would want him on a two-way, and I don't think Clutch would want that. It gets a little tougher. The other scout I talked to, positional athlete, doesn't function as an elite athlete, tweener stuck between two positions. Should be a point guard based on his size, but he can't run an offense. He's handicapped as an undersized shooting guard because he can't shoot. 0-4 on threes on one day, 1 for 3 the other day. Needs screens to create space, and his only scoring came on paint touch floaters and can only go left. His strength is supposed to be defensively, but he's a switch matchup. Every bigger player who switched on him scored. He's a poor man's Davion Mitchell. He is not an NBA prospect, in my opinion. Not my words of two veteran NBA.
So key quote here from Mark Spears that I think sums up all of Bronny James. Quote, he is handicapped as a smaller shooting guard because he can't shoot.
Yep.
Think about that. Handicapped as a smaller shooting guard because the guy can't shoot. It's ridiculous that ESPN spends this much time on it. I understand why. I wish Kendrick Perkins would have gone harder, quite frankly.
Well, he speaks
I
more.
think he went into why are we talking about this because the guy's a second-round pick? Well, it's obvious because it's LeBron James' kid. My argument, and I think our argument all along has been, you're going to talk about the kid because he thinks he's ready to go pro because he's LeBron James' kid. And he's nowhere near ready. And if you allow this as an NBA team, you're allowing LeBron James, an aging superstar that's getting ready to retire, to dictate terms of one of 2 draft picks you get every year for your team. To draft a kid who is not ready to play in the NBA and not anywhere near that. That's my issue with the whole thing. It's not that they're talking about it. I understand the desire to talk about it because Bronny James is going to get a response. But I do feel dumber for having listened to those 2 women try to prop up Bronny James.
You know what they didn't do?
And I think Mark Spears and Kendrick Perkins were the voice of reason in that conversation because I think I've lost a few, and I didn't have many IQ points to spare, but I think I lost a few having listened to Miss Agumake and Ramona Shelburne.
But what they didn't do during the NFL draft was talk about Jerry Rice's son, who was draftable in the 7th round, undrafted. T.O., Terrell Owens' son, was eligible for the draft. He's going to camp as a part of a 90-man roster. Frank Gore Jr. as a kid in the draft? No.
I mean, Joe Montana's kid had a kid that was in the draft at one point, too. I mean, there's countless greats that have had kids that weren't talked about.
McCaffrey has
drafted.
His brother in the draft. He's selected. You know, they have all these different stories. I didn't hear a lot about any of the nepotism of that, and part of it is where they're not going to go play for their dad or with their dad. That's exactly what ESPN wants. It's not about Bronny if he's draftable. They want to set up a scenario where in Los Angeles for the Lakers, where right smack dab in the middle of L.A., there's an ESPN studio. They want Bron to have Bronny on the same team and use that and push it to the moon. He was averaging like 14 points per game in high school whenever he was invited as a McDonald's All-American. Kendrick Perkins pointed that out, too, in this piece. You don't average 14 and then all of a sudden become a McDonald's All-American and make that game. You'll be doing a little bit more than that. And here he is. And I will keep in mind, you mentioned the 6'1". The comps here, Chad. They mentioned more than just a poor man's Davion Mitchell. Derek White.
By the way, I love in those videos how they keep going back to Davion Mitchell. That's pretty good. And 3 times he had to say a poor man's Davion Mitchell.
Poor man.
Davion Mitchell was a lottery pick, guys. A poor man's Davion Mitchell, Ramona.
You got Davion Mitchell, Derek White, and Drew Holiday were the comps. Poor man's those 3 guys. And then one of the analysts said, well, you know, maybe the ceiling is Eric Bledsoe. I mean, okay. Maybe 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Which won't impact whether or not he decides to go pro this year. He's got until he's got 9 days or so, 10 days or so to declare or go back to the college. And they point out that, well, helping his decision here is the fact that he doesn't have the same coach at USC. I'm thinking, he's in the portal. Like, he can do whatever he wants to do and go play for any coach.
In high school, my ceiling was seen as Wally Zerbiak. It was not. Spoiler alert.
It wasn't Tony
I'm here to tell you
Kukoc?
it wasn't. And that's as likely as Bronny James turning into Eric Bledsoe was me turning into Wally Zerbiak at any point in my athletic career.
I thought it was more...
neither's going to happen.
It wasn't more Tony Kukoc or...
No, Tony Kukoc because the left-handed shot.
It wasn't Jeff Hornacek?
As many comps. I was more Judd Bushler, if we're going with those old Bulls teams. More of a hustle guy, give you 3 quick fouls.
Okay, yeah.
You know, that I would have loved to have Mark Spears read off my comp. It's like, you know, he's a shooting guard, but he's slow, so that's a problem. And he picks up fouls at a really quick rate, quicker than I've ever seen in the league, which isn't going to help him at all defensively. If you switch off of him, the problem with Chad is he's not good against the bigger players or the smaller players because the quickness of the smaller players gives him fits, and the bigger players just block his shot repeatedly. That's what I felt like I was hearing from an actual scout with their evaluation of Bronny James.
You would be the player, though, who would hit the free throw on behalf of the fan. You would miss on purpose, excuse me.
Yeah.
Back-to-back for the free chicken sandwich.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have done what that giant did. Forget his name, Boban, right? I would have done. I would have been that guy for the team. I could sell you some tickets just with some entertainment value, but that's about it.
Yeah, Chad.
Let's go back to he is 6'1". And
right.
They tried to prop him up as someone 6'4",
and he's not Rajon Rondo.
This is a hidden huge story because in that it sums up a kid who was born not just on third and thought he hit a triple. The guy was rounding third, and the ball was at the warning track, and the outfielder was picking up the ball, and he was trotting into home as he was born, and he feels like he hit a home run. And when you have people around you like your dad, who's one of the greatest of all time, that will do everything to prop you up, things like being listed at 6'4" when you're actually 6'1", and getting an invite to the McDonald's All-American game, averaging 14 points per game, which, by the way, was 3 more than I averaged in high school, that is what happens for you along the way. And if you are a fan of the meritocracy of sports, you should hate that.
Yeah.
You should absolutely hate it. And I hate listening to Ramona Shelburne and Agumake say that.
This is my wish. Is that ESPN's wish on behalf of Ramona Shelburne and Shanae Agumake that it ends because they are doing the bidding here. There is one piece of info though in what Ramona Shelburne said that maybe he's a maybe he's a two-way player, but Clutch Sports doesn't want that. And just keep that in mind. that the whole two-way scenario where, you can have two players on your roster on a two-way contract, you can send them back and forth to the G League, and then
again,
they're saying they don't want that. Who do you think that's coming from?
That's also the whole problem.
He'll be on this 50-man roster.
Let's go deeper than that. What do I give a damn what Clutch Sports wants for a kid who averaged 4.7 points per game?
Because that's LeBron.
Exactly. His only value is as LeBron James' kid.
Yep.
I'm not saying in life. I'm sure he's a talented, smart kid who could do a lot of things. I'm saying as an NBA player, his loan value to your organization is access to LeBron James or being able to sell the fact that you have LeBron James' kid on your roster. Point to one tangible thing he brings to the court as a 6'1" shooting guard that's only handicap is he's a smaller shooting guard that can't shoot.
He's the guy.
Nothing.
You know
he
what
brings
is?
nothing to the court.
He in the NBA, he's the player at the end of the bench that the fans in college are chanting the name for in a blowout, so that dude can get on the floor and shoot every possession until he scores.
And go, what,
You know what I'm
1 for 8, which
One
he
for
did
8.
in the combine?
Yeah.
Even when there's not a lot of pressure on
But
you?
he did hit, there was...
he had 5 in a row with no one on him, right? And some shooting drill?
Well, then he scored 20 or something in the final game, Chad. To give him,
awesome.
But here's the other thing. Why now? It's because LeBron has the leverage to tell the Lakers what to do because they want to extend him by these 3 years. They want to keep him around. He knows that. He wants to end his career coming up. I mean, he's 40 years old. He wants to do it, and he's said in the past he wants to play with his son. To his credit, Bronny, you can believe him or not, says, it's not one of my goals in life to play with my dad. He'll end up playing for his father whenever he's a part owner of the Las Vegas franchise, I'm sure. And the other thing that just comes up when you mentioned the 6'1", when he was listed at 6'4"?
Yeah.
Bryce James, his younger brother, is listed at 6'6".
He's 6'2".
6'2", 6'3"?
6'3".
Although he actually looks tall.
Yeah, he does.
So, but
I think, hold on.
is he 6'4"?
Let's get Ramona Shelburne on the show. I think she's got him as a lottery pick right now.
Yeah.
Because those extra 4 inches that he
Right.
has right now. As
Yeah,
a
a
kid.
poor man's lottery pick.
I
That
just,
guy will actually, he has a chance based on what he's doing in high school.
I just hate this whole game of access.
I know.
Being driven by access. And what Ramona Shelburne, because a long-time Lakers reporter, what she wants is access, and she wants scoop. And you can get that access and scoop if you push an agenda for a player or coach. And this is a game that's gone on for far too long, but I don't have to sit back and take it and think that, they're making good points here. They're not good points by either one of those women.
And what was the complaint, 2 weeks ago? That the media as a whole is not going to ever do anything but call out the coach and get the coach fired. It's never about the player. Never about the player.
In the NBA.
In the NBA.
Yeah.
Barkley was saying that. At some point, it's on the player.
You know who else is all about that?
This is a great example of that.
Well, you know who else is all about that, which I find hilarious now, is J.J. Redick, who has blasted Doc Rivers. He does nothing but defends players and blast coaches. If he gets hired as the Lakers coach and he's a head coach now, I think that's hysterical that now he's going to be in the seat of someone that when he was an analyst, he always attacked and he never put any blame on the player. Let's see what it's like now, big boy, when your players are pushing you around and doing what they want and not getting the job done, and people are going to come after you, and you're going to want to deflect that blame and put some on the players, and it's not going to be allowed because of your stance every time.
And who would that player be?
Well, apparently it's Anthony Davis that got Darvin Ham fired and not LeBron.
Well,
my point is it could be any player, right?
Yeah, the max contract guys. But if he's there, you've got multiple guys that
any of the good players could do it.
Chad, this got my attention in the NBA. This coverage, this blatant, just obvious attempt to try to get us, the viewing audience, to actually believe LeBron James has a son that's worthy of being in the NBA. On the surface level, you believe that, and then you see all this. We didn't hear anything about it until he declared for the draft and kept the right to go back to college basketball.
We were all hoping he'd go to Ohio State to see if he could prove it in the Big Ten.
Sure.
Or prove it in college basketball for a year, because he certainly didn't prove it in 1 year at USC.
Shador's proving it, right?
Yeah.
He's proven he could be a draftable quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, marks to him. He's putting up numbers in major college football.
I enjoyed Kendrick Perkins stepping in. That got my attention. The NBA also has your attention.
You know what's got my attention? Our Minnesota Timberwolves,
Yes.
Hutton, the T-Wolves, taking home Game 7. You heard it here first. I've got a hefty bet on the Wolves to win it all. I could cash out now, but I'm going to wait until they beat the Mavs because they'll likely lose the Boston Celtics in the finals. But I will cash out after they win these Western Conference finals, and they're favored to do that. They were not favored to win on the road in Denver in Game 7, but that's exactly what they did. And what this weekend showed me was a great sign and step forward for those that don't want the NBA to be fixed, or at least to feel like it's fixed, because everyone in media, for the most part, in national media, and it felt like the league really wanted the darling New York Knicks to win in Game 7 at Madison Square Garden. Now, the Indiana Pacers had something to say about that. They shot almost 77% in the first half of their big win over the Knicks. They shot 67% for the game. They were on fire. They were fantastic. I don't even know if the league wanted to fix the game they could have with numbers like that from the Pacers. They were terrific. And thank God, honestly, that we don't have to see the Knicks anymore, because without Jalen Brunson, who broke his hand in that game, I would not want to see that series against the Celtics. On the other side, I'm watching the end of Thunder Mavs, and I'm thinking this is going to work out perfectly when the Thunder came back for the NBA, that they force another Game 7, because more games, more ad inventory, better for their networks, better for the league, right? And the Mavs win by 1 point in a terrific finish. High-level plays made by both teams down the stretch between the Thunder and the Mavericks. Loved watching the end of that game. Very, very impressed with that one. Now fast forward to our Timberwolves versus the Nuggets. Nuggets are up 20 in that game. A chance for the defending NBA champion and the league MVP, Jokic, to move on to defend their title. And what happens from that point forward, this is in the second half, they're up 20. A 32-9 run from the 10:50 mark of the third quarter to the 11:14 mark of the fourth quarter for the Timberwolves. And they go on to win that game, to send the Denver crowd home very unhappy. They move on to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think this is what's best for television for these conference finals, but to me, it's what's best for the integrity of the league, because I see all these outcomes over the weekend, Hutton, and for once, I'm not sitting here thinking, even if it's in the very back of my mind, thinking about the league office having a say over outcomes and what happens. Teams won it and or lost it by themselves on the court this weekend. I will say in that Mavs game, they were the victims of some horrific officiating early in that game where Luka Doncic got a technical. And I'm thinking, here we go. They're trying to force a Game 7 in this series, but the Mavs were able to fight that off, and they win by 1 point. It's got my attention. I'm impressed with the NBA playoffs, what I saw over the weekend, and I'm dialed in now. I'm dialed into Minnesota and Dallas, and I'm anxious to see if the Pacers can continue on. What did Rick Carlisle say after their win? We're the uninvited guest at this point.
No doubt.
We've crashed the party. No one thought we were going to be here, and here we are in the Eastern Conference Finals.
How about Indiana? Down 0-2. You have the Reggie Miller moment. And Reggie is saying after the Game 7, did you see what he tweeted?
Oh,
he eviscerated them.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up the exact tweet. But he said, this is the ultimate choke job. I'm paraphrasing a bit, and you'll read it in a second. But the tide turned on that moment where you had the trash talk by the Knicks come over to Reggie and let him know what's going on while he's on headset with Kevin Harlan for the broadcast at Madison Square Garden. And then Halliburton with the hoodie, with the Reggie Miller hoodie with the choking hands, just like he did. He scored, 8 points in 9 seconds in Game 1 of that series, 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
And then comes back and wins in Game 7.
I kind of want that sweatshirt, by the way. That's a great photo.
Me too. And
so
and
here's
he said,
what
I just felt like, Halliburton to his credit was like, I just felt like wearing a hoodie today.
Yeah, it's great.
It's awesome.
So here's what Reggie Miller, he posted a photo of Josh Hart going to him in the broadcast as they were going up 2-0, saying they're saying F you. Yeah. F you, Reggie. They're telling you, F you, if you can't hear them.
Yeah.
And he posted on Instagram, when the series changed with that photo. And he writes, Jalen Brunson, you are a true baller, been the best player in these playoffs. But you and your boys can go all heel up together on some beautiful beaches in Cancun. Please enjoy. That from Reggie Miller.
I love it.
Reggie Miller, alpha.
I love it. I wish he was on more of the calls throughout the series.
I know. It was great. By the way, speaking of calls of that series, I got to give credit to Pat McAfee again.
Oh, yeah.
Who every time you think, okay, he's not going to talk trash about ESPN anymore, he just one-ups himself every time. Today on his show, he was going off on Doris Burke. I mean, we're talking like sacred legend. Don't say anything bad about of the NBA.
Can't.
Saying Doris Burke was so upset when Jalen Brunson was hurt that she was almost crying. There was a moment of silence from her that you couldn't hear from her for a while. How upset all of ESPN was that the Knicks were about to go down and lose that series, and you could feel the network just hating it when the Pacers were going to win that game.
Talking trash about Doris Burke is like trying to draw the face of Muhammad. You can't do it. You can't show it.
Yeah,
you're not allowed. But the other thing, is this good or bad for the ratings? It was just like last year with the Nuggets, right? You knew that ratings were going to drop, but it's good to develop stars.
Yeah.
And did it? There's still controversy over Joker, right? Even though there shouldn't be. This will be the 6th consecutive season where we will have a new NBA champion. That's great. In a league that's been known for super teams.
Yeah.
And combining all of your talents and going to South Beach. This is awesome for the league. And
it's also, I think, the 5th straight time that the previous year's champion did not even advance to the conference finals.
Okay.
They got knocked out before the conference finals.
But, when I say it's great, I mean, it's not going to be visually great when they release these numbers because New York's not in. It would have been great if New York's in, too, because that still would have counted here. But, yeah, I mean, the Pacers are the uninvited guest. I love that. And you've got the chip on the shoulder there as they go against Boston, who's been, the most consistent team throughout the season.
Hunter, are you ready for a stat of the day?
Yes.
Our very own stat of the day?
Yes.
The Minnesota Timberwolves, after that Game 7 win, are the only NBA franchise to be undefeated in Game 7s over the course of their history.
Wow.
They're 2-0.
But still.
They've only been in 2, and they've won both of them.
Well,
this is only the second time ever the T-Wolves have advanced to a conference finals. Last time, 2004, with Kevin Garnett, they lost in 6 games to the LA Lakers in the conference finals.
That's crazy. The fact that they've only had 2 games. I think
Wally Zerbiak was actually on that team, if I remember correctly.
The fact they've only had 2 game 7s, you know?
Yeah. Well, they suck. I mean, the point is,
well, I know, but
they've sucked throughout their history. So I just found that funny.
At least
they're the only unbeaten team in NBA history. In Game 7s, they've been in 2.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then I don't get the sense this series is going 7.
I think Minnesota should. I think it should be Minnesota-Boston. I know that's the favorite. I'm going out on a limb here. I think Minnesota-Boston finals. I think Boston's probably the NBA champion. But I'm going to root like hell for our Timberwolves. They're number 1 in our hearts on this show.
They have the star power to do it. They have the talent, the superstar talent.
The only tweet that I saw when you were talking about Kendrick Perkins and him getting upset and him head on the desk.
Facepalm.
When the women were talking about Bronny James. The video that was posted with it, someone posted on X or Twitter, and they said it felt like Kendrick Perkins was 2 seconds away from pulling a Harrison Butker and telling these women to get back in the kitchen. As he was saying this during the thing, I was like, that's really, really funny.
There's the facepalm. Look at him. I mean, it's just.
It was this moment. It was a photo that was a video. And it said 2 seconds away from pulling a Harrison Butker and telling them to go back to the kitchen.
We have certainly disagreed with things Kendrick Perkins has said. I appreciate him because at least he wants to be respected on the show that he's discussing. And he's last on the panel in this discussion for a reason. For what is it? Prior to this segment, they set it up with comments made by 19-year-old LeBron James. And then a comment made by Bronny at the Combine.
Yeah, he is a complete. I completely disagree with some of his takes.
Sure,
but I do like that he'll go after Charles Barkley or Shaq or whoever. Now Shaq and Barkley can get the last laugh because they can point to his career stat line with theirs, and they'll do that gladly. They'll do that and poke fun at him. I was watching the other day just some random. It was an NBA discussion. I think about the Nuggets' loss in Game 6, and him and Stephen A. Smith got into an argument over who was more tired for their hit. and he was mumbling, which Kendrick Perkins mumbles a lot. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
But he was mumbling to start, and he couldn't hear it. And Stephen A. Smith just, like, chastised him on air and said, stop acting like you're not awake. Wake up. And dude, he's like, well, we won't talk about that. He said, I flew a red eye here from the game. And Stephen A. Smith's like, I slept 2 hours last night.
I work every day.
I slept 2 hours. I'm on 2 hours sleep.
Give
and I'm
an
thinking,
Adderall.
man, this is hilarious. They're just battling back and forth on who's more tired.
Oh, you know who's not tired?
That's going to be Hutton and I in 2 weeks.
Yes,
We're going to
yes.
wake it up. Let's go.
Crank it up.